nation. No donation, no salvation.
And remember, respect is everything.
We are back, and this was kind of an unplanned special, but I figured I might as well do it anyway since it kind of put me in a good mood to think about it. This is my 300th video upload. I'm not joking. I didn't even realize it until I was at the grocery store today talking with a young lady at the register while I was getting groceries. To make a long story short, I was showing her my YouTube channel since she asked about it, since she noticed I was buying some die-cast vehicles for a toy haul. And, we had a good conversation and went back and forth a bit. And as I was looking at my channel to show it to her, I noticed I was at 299 uploads. So I figured if I'm going to do a 300 video special, it's got to be something very important and true to me. So today we are going to look at the Trans Am 20,000 from the anime film Redline. Just a quick warning, if you've never seen the film, well, one, it's a very good film, and I would recommend it if you love animation or just, anime or sci-fi futuristic racing, especially if you love, people like Takeshi Koike and James Samoji, who were both involved in the project. So, if you're familiar with those names, again, I would recommend checking the film out. So, the main reason this car is so important to me is because I discovered it at a very young age during my transition to middle to high school. And because of that, it became kind of an obsession of mine. Because the reason I even discovered this car in the first place was because a friend of mine, my best friend in the whole world, who I still talk to this day, just not as much as I would like to, but, we both have our own lives and life goes on. And years ago, had I known that him showing me that film would have led me in the path that I decided to take, I would have been more than forever grateful for him showing me that film. Because this car was just so cool to me at that age that it created this intense motivational drive to make the perfect representation of it in Lego form. For so many years, that motivation was just there, just constantly going, trying to get this car absolutely perfect. And it's ironically what got me back into Legos and just toy collecting in general, and made me less embarrassed about it and just kind of, disregard everyone else and just do what makes me happy. This car especially, was a huge part of that. So if it wasn't for this vehicle, I probably wouldn't be doing all the Lego Transformers stuff that I always do. Now, speaking of the car, I have looked at the transforming version, but I am going to include it in this video anyway. Here's the transforming version. I've already reviewed it, so if you want to see that video, just look up Hot Shot on my channel, since that's why I decided to give this vehicle form to, because in the original Unicron trilogy, Hot Shot was a yellow sports car, so it seemed fitting, and I decided, hey, he needs a cool car. It only seemed fitting. So yeah, my Transformers are kind of done in this really simplistic, kind of squished, chibi kind of art style that I like to do. But since we've already looked at that, the main focus here are the actual models themselves. So let's take a look at the actual cars themselves. I'm sorry if I've been rambling for almost 4 minutes now. It's just, as you can tell, this car was very important to me, and I spent years and years, documenting and trying to perfect this vehicle. So there's probably a chance that if you're familiar with this ar, you saw it on Google at some point under numerous account names, because I didn't really have much of an internet identity yet. Not that I'm really, this major, public figure or anything, but had it not been for this vehicle and a number of other things going on in my life, I probably wouldn't be doing YouTube. But anyway, for the actual car itself, it appears to be based on, well, obviously the Pontiac Trans Am from its name, which ironically got its name from the Trans-American Racing Series of the late 60s and early 1970s. So I just thought that was a cool fact to throw in. But the main design takes inspiration from many American muscle cars of that era. So the front is definitely reminiscent of probably an early 70s Camaro, granted a little boxier. The main headlights probably came from a Chevy Vega. The general shape of the car is definitely an old school, F-body. I think that's what it was called, from the 70s. Or any of the second-gen Camaro or Firebirds. That's where the shape generally comes from. The rear of the car seems to be inspired by a GT500 Mustang from the late 60s, probably a 67 or a 68. They're both fairly similar, but have minor differences to them. So it takes inspiration from many different types of cars. And then obviously the bright yellow color, I mean, it might be a reference to Transformers, but I doubt it. I mean, it just could be a coincidence, although I do like the stripes. There should be a blue kind of trim or outline to the white stripes. It's just obviously with the limitations of the Legos, I can only do so much, and I kind of wanted to keep the colors consistent, so I ended up just leaving it off with, since, I mean, I probably could have put the one here, but again, it would have looked weird because, then these don't have it, and then, it's a whole thing. The car can hold a minifigure. Yes, I did make JP a minifigure. So if you don't know who JP is, in the film, one of the main characters is Sweet JP, a very greaser, punk rocker, very Elvis inspired. So, he wears leather jackets, rides around on futuristic motorcycles, and obviously drives a very retro inspired, muscle car, race car. And he can fit in this car. Again, I'm sorry if this video is kind of going on very long. It's just, for obvious reasons, there's so much to talk about with this vehicle, and I just wanted to do a massive special on it, because it felt very important to me, because if it wasn't for this car, and my friends showing me that movie all those years ago, I probably wouldn't be doing this right now. I pretty much demonstrated all you can do with this car. It's basically just a normal car. Now, I did also do the second version, because in the film, the car was destroyed. Because in the movie, like I said, spoilers, so JP and his main mechanic, Frisbee, were involved in various race fixing schemes after a botched race where he was supposed to win, but because he lost, they lost a ton of cash because they borrowed it from a mob called the Inuki Gang. Because they couldn't pay him back, they were doing various race fixing schemes where JP basically became a jobber, and every time they would bet on him to lose, it would rig the results, and then they would make a huge fortune on it. Unfortunately, the cops set up a sting, and Frisbee was trapped, so JP went to jail for him because it was his way of repaying Frisbee for everything he had done, for believing in him and his ability to race. So here's the second version, because in the first version, the car got destroyed because obviously, because it's a rigged race, or at least he rigs the results by, so his mechanic would put a bomb near the rear wheel to ensure that JP doesn't try and, change plans and actually try to win. So to ensure that, nothing, messes with their plan, he would rig bombs in the back of the car so that it would cause the car to crash and hopefully not kill JP in the process. So here is the second version of the car, which according to the film was built from scratch, since the original one was pretty much destroyed beyond all recognition. And it's pretty much the same car. Obviously, instead of that giant supercharger, it just has a Ram air hood. It has dual stripes and a fifth wheel on the front nose. I'll explain what that is in a second. And then the car also had a super futuristic rear-mounted engine and tri-blade rims. I also made the windows blue to kind of match the, tint effect that it had throughout the film and some of the actual reference material. Here are some images that I printed out many years ago that I still have of both cars. So, as you can see, I took this project very seriously over the last 10 years. I spent about probably more than 10 years working on this, but that was on and off because, like I said, I didn't really have the Lego collection I do now. So I was always taking stuff apart and, rebuilding it and redoing it all the time. But as my collection grew, I was finally able to just constantly build stuff and never have to take anything apart. Now, in between, my constant revisions of the Lego models, which, here, let's go over one more feature that this car has. So like in the movie, again, spoiler alert, the car got ripped apart by a villain known as Lynchman. Or he wasn't really a villain, but he was one of the rival racers in the final Redline race, because that's the main race of the film. The front end of the car gets ripped off and is turned into this very odd-looking trike sort of vehicle, since the actual main engine and chassis is pretty much just this three-wheeled vehicle, and then the actual shell is just mostly cosmetic. I mean, you do get a roof and, more structure to the vehicle, but for the most part, he didn't really need that entire shell. But, I mean, again, it adds character to the car, and I really like how this car looks. And much later at the end of the film, as they're racing towards the finish line, the car gets destroyed one last time and then completely fades into oblivion as the movie concludes. But again, sorry for all the spoilers. Here is the trike mode. Again, I did the best I could with it. Again, this has also changed over many years. So in this reference sheet, which was for an actual model toy car that sadly never got released, it looks like all the wheels are supposed to be touching the ground. So again, I don't really know much about suspension and mechanics and engineering. I mean, I did take engineering in high school, but I mean, that was years ago. So I know this video's gone on long enough, but before we go, I also want to show off some other models I made in the years between this as well. Here are my 3D prints that I did back in high school because, they had a 3D printing program for everyone, so I wasn't the only one that, did stuff like this. And obviously, as you can tell, I made these myself. They're not perfect, but I'm very happy with them, and I'm really happy to share these with the world now, since I finally, gained a lot of confidence in myself to really, explore this kind of stuff with others. As you can see, I tried to make the details a little more accurate, but again, only so much I could do with very basic rendering software. I don't remember what I think it was like a browser-based 3D rendering software. It's like Tinkercad or something. So there's the first Trans Am with the original engine block and the normal front end and the interesting Mustang taillights. And the wheels were also different. This one had hubcaps, and then the upgraded rebuild had tri-blade rims. So here's the other version. I don't know why, I just like this one more. I think it's because of the sleekness of the front end, though, as you can see, I really like both cars. But I don't know, this design just really stuck out to me, and I just really love it for some reason. And then there's the rear-mounted engine. It actually had tailpipes at one point, but they broke off years ago. I mean, these are old, so I do my best to preserve them. I keep them in a nice little wood box, which is right here. It's just, obviously, I have them out for the review, but I also keep their reference sheets in here as well. So I take these models very seriously, considering how much personal, connections I have to this vehicle in my years growing up as a newcomer to anime and just, a regained interest in Lego building. So for those reasons alone, I keep them in this very special box, which is also kind of dusty, and I apologize for that. Before we go, I have one last model that I want to show you guys. This is my original 3D print from high school that I made many years ago. This was the first one I ever made. Now, obviously, it did not look this good, or, well, I mean, let's be honest, it looks terrible because my hand painting skills are just atrocious, but I didn't have any spray paint, and I did the best I could. But anyway, originally, this was just one solid yellow lump, kind of like the other ones. The problem was, I tried to incorporate an interior, and the roof pillars were very brittle, and they broke off, and then the whole roof broke off, and then I dropped it, and then this entire corner was missing, and all the wheels snapped off. I was not very good at taking care of my things when I was younger, so I felt bad that I had left it abandoned for so long, so I decided to go out of my way and take some leftover spare parts from toy cars and plastic covers and just throw it all together and make this, restore it to some kind of former glory. Obviously, the wheels are not correct, and I also realized they're backwards on both sides, which, wow, I don't know how I missed that. But you know what? I don't mind it. It gives it character. But yeah, as you can see, I just kind of glued stuff onto it, then repainted it, and did the best I could with it. It doesn't come apart or anything, but this is going to be a really long video, but I mean, if you've made it this far, I appreciate you, and I thank you. And we're almost at 600 subscribers, which is kind of cool, too, so I'll probably have to do another special very soon, but In the meantime, thank you all for watching, and thank you for listening if you've stuck around this far. Until then, you all have a good one, and I'll see you all later. So.
Hallelujah! Another soul saved!